Before you do anything rash, like pressing another button, may I make an alternative suggestion? The trouble with computers, of course, is that they're very sophisticated idiots. Even the sonic screwdriver won't get me out of this one. The moment has been prepared for.
Hello and welcome to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast number 11. Once again, my apologies for the lateness of the podcast, but those of you who are regular readers of the page will know that I've been very unwell over the last week to 10 days. Thank you to those of you who have sent good wishes for a speedy recovery. Aside from a little cough, I am feeling much better. This week we're continuing our monthly look at the 11 Doctors and the actors who've played the parts, with an in-depth look at the wonderful Tom Baker. Later in the podcast we'll also be hearing from one of the alien aggressors that Baker's fourth Doctor faced early in his tenure. Tom Baker was born in Scotland Road, Liverpool, England. His mother, Mary Jane, was a cleaner, and his father, John Stuart Baker, was a sailor who was rarely at home. Baker left school at 15 to become a Roman Catholic monk and remained in this lifestyle for 6 years, but left after losing his faith. He went on to do his national service in the Royal Army Medical Corps, serving from 1955 to 1957. At the same time he took up acting, first as a hobby before turning professional towards the end of the 1960s. In the late 1960s and early 70s, Baker was part of Laurence Olivier's National Theatre Company, and his first big film break in 1971 was the role of Rasputin in the film Nicholas and Alexandra. He also appeared in Pier Paolo Pasolini's 1972 version of Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, as the younger husband of the wife of Bath. In 1974, Baker took over the role of the Doctor from John Pertwee. He was recommended to producer Barry Letts by BBC's head of serials Bill Slater, who directed Baker in Play of the Month. Impressed upon meeting him, Letts was convinced Baker was right for the part after seeing his performance in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. He quickly made the part his own. As the fourth Doctor, his trademark long scarf and fondness for jelly babies made him an immediately recognisable figure, and he quickly caught the viewing public's imagination. Baker played the Doctor for 7 consecutive seasons over a 7-year period, making him the longest-serving actor in the part. He himself suggested many aspects of the Doctor's personality, but the distinctive scarf was created by accident. James Aitchison, the costume designer, provided far more wool than was necessary to the knitter Begonia Pope. Pope knitted all the wool she was given, and it was Baker who suggested that he wear this ridiculously long scarf. When John Nathan Turner took over as producer of Doctor Who in 1981, Baker was apparently infuriated by the changes made to his wardrobe. Baker's Doctor is often regarded as the most popular of the Doctors. In polls conducted by Doctor Who magazine, he has lost the Best Doctor category only 3 times. Once to Sylvester McCoy in 1990 and twice to David Tennant in 2006 and 2009. In a poll published by BBC Homes and Antiques magazine in January 2006, Baker was voted the 4th most eccentric star, beaten only by Bjork, Chris Eubank and David Icke. He continues to be associated with the Doctor, appearing in documentaries such as The Story of Doctor Who and Doctor Who Confidential, and giving interviews about his time on the programme. He appeared as the Doctor for the 1993 charity special Dimensions in Time, and on audio for the PC game Destiny of the Doctors. In 1996 he reprised his time on the show as the highlight of his life. He's often invited as part of documentaries on the extras of Doctor Who DVD releases from his era of the Doctor, and as recorded DVD commentaries for many of those stories. In a 2004 interview regarding the series revival, Baker suggested that he be cast as the Master. In a 2006 interview with the Sun newspaper, he claims that he had not watched any episodes of the new series because he just can't be bothered. In June 2006, Baker once again expressed interest in the role in a guest column for Radio Times, noting that he did watch a little of the new Doctor Who, and said he thought that the new fella, Tennant, was excellent. While Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann had all reprised their roles for audio adventures produced since 1990s by Big Finish and sometimes the BBC, Baker had declined until 2009, claiming that he hadn't seen a script that he liked. In July 2009, the BBC announced that he would return to the role for a series of 5 audio dramas co-starring Richard Franklin as Captain Mike Yates, which would begin release in September. The 5 audios comprise a single linked story under the banner The Hornet's Nest, written by well-known author Paul Mars. Baker also filmed inserts for a video and DVD release of the unfinished story Shada back in 1992. He presented the video release The Tom Baker Years and also provided narration for several BBC audio releases of old Doctor Who stories. In March 2011, it was announced that Baker would be returning as the 4th Doctor for 2 series of plays for Big Finish Productions, starring alongside former companions Leela and Romana 1, as played by Mary Tamm. The first series of 6 audios were released starting from January 2012. Big Finish had also arranged for Baker to record a series of stories reuniting him with Elizabeth Sladen's character Sarah Jane Smith. But sadly, Sladen died in April 2011 before any stories could be recorded. Tom Baker has been involved in the reading of old Target novelisations in the BBC audio range of talking books. Doctor Who and the Giant Robot was the first release in the range read by Baker, released on the 5th of November 2007, followed then by Brain of Morbius, Creature from the Pit and the Pyramids of Mars. In October 2009, Baker was interviewed for BBC Radio 4's Last Word to pay tribute to the deceased former Doctor Who producer Barry Letts. He described Letts, who originally cast him in the role, as the big link in changing my entire life.
You may be a doctor, but I'm the doctor. The definite article, you might say. Oh, please don't call me human. Just doctor will do very nicely, thank you.
But what of the character of the 4th Doctor? After contracting radiation poisoning from the crystals of the planet Metebelis 3, the 3rd Doctor makes his way back to Unit Headquarters, where the Time Lord, Campo Rinpoche, aids him in regenerating. In his new incarnation, the Doctor is eager to leave Earth in favour of exploration, thus drawing back from continuous involvement with Unit. He's also grown tired of working for the Time Lords, but despite attempts to avoid them altogether, they continue to send him on occasional missions, including an attempt to prevent the creation of the Daleks, during which he also meets a new adversary, Davros. The Doctor travels with journalist Sarah Jane Smith, whom he had befriended prior to his regeneration, and for a time with unit surgeon Harry Sullivan. After a battle with the Zygons in Scotland, Harry decides that taking the train was safer than the TARDIS, which the Doctor and Sarah choose to try and make an appointment in London. Instead, they end up on the planet Zeta Minor, located at the far edge of the known universe. From this point on, the Doctor and Sarah travel alone. The Doctor's companionship with Sarah Jane comes to an end when he receives a telepathic summons to Gallifrey, as humans were not then allowed on the planet. The Doctor is then seen to travel alone for the first time since Season 1, returning to a planet he had visited centuries before. During his previous visit, he had accidentally imprinted his own mind on a human colony ship's powerful computer, Zoannon, leaving it with multiple personalities. After the Doctor cures the computer, one of the Sever team, Leela, joins him on his travels. The Doctor brings the intelligent but uneducated Leela to many locales in human history, teaching her about science and her own species' past. Later, the Doctor and Leela visit the Bial Foundation Medical Centre, where they acquire K9. In the aftermath of the events of the Invasion of Time, Leela and K9 decide to remain on Gallifrey, but the Doctor comforts himself by building K9 Mark II. Shortly after this, the powerful White Guardian assigns the Doctor the task of finding the 6 segments to the Key to Time, sending a young Time Lady named Romana to assist him. At the conclusion of the quest, Romana regenerates, taking on the body of Princess Astra. In an effort to evade the Black Guardian, the Doctor installs a randomizer in the TARDIS, so that not even the Black Guardian can anticipate where they go. After several adventures, the 4th Doctor and Romana are projected outside the known universe into a universe of negative coordinates, known as E-space. The TARDIS lands on a planet called Alzirius, where they're joined by the young prodigy named Adric. Eventually, the Doctor and his 2 companions find themselves in a white void with no coordinates, a sort of membrane between the two universes. A way out soon forms, but Romana and K9 choose to remain behind to help free a race of enslaved creatures in E-space. The Doctor and Adric have only just made it back when they're asked to help the people of Traken from a creature known as the Melchior. On Traken, Adric and the Doctor are introduced to the aristocratic Nyssa of Traken. The Doctor then decides to travel to Earth to scan a real police box as part of a plan to repair the chameleon circuit in the TARDIS. However, the Doctor soon spots a mysterious ghostly figure looking at him in the distance, who warns him of future dangers. As he prepares to travel to the planet Legopolis to get the chameleon circuit finally fixed, Tegan Javanka appears in the console room. Nyssa then shows up on Legopolis, explaining that she was brought there by the same figure that the Doctor encountered. The Master agrees to help the Doctor to stop the spread of entropy by adapting the Pharos Project radio telescope on Earth. However, when the Master tries to take control of the project, the Doctor runs out under the upturned radio dish to sever a cable. The Master causes the dish to start rolling so that the Doctor will fall to his death. Before he falls, however, he manages to tear out the cable, only to leave his companions watching in horror as he clings on, hanging perilously high up. As his grip begins to slip, he sees visions of all the enemies he's faced over the years before falling to the ground. Adric, Nyssa and Tegan gather round the mortally wounded Doctor, who begins seeing visions of all his companions and even the Brigadier calling his name. He then looks up at the three of them and utters his last words.
It's the end. But the moment has been prepared for.
He then motions to the white-clad figure of the Watcher, who begins approaching him. The Watcher, a manifestation of the Doctor's future incarnation, merges with the Doctor and triggers his regeneration. And that's it for this week's show. Once again, my thanks for listening, and thanks also for your patience as I've struggled to get the podcast out over the last couple of weeks. I hope you're enjoying hearing what you're hearing, and don't forget, if you have any feedback, you can inbox me on Theta Sigma's Doctor Who page on Facebook, or email me at respectthething@gmail.com. That's respecttething@gmail.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. Don't forget also that you can share the podcast on your pages as well, and I'd love to know what you and your friends think, and also if there's anything you'd like me to talk about in future podcasts. So once again, my thanks for listening, and until next time...
Well, goodbye, my boy. You did quite well. Quite well. It's reassuring to know that my future is in safe hands.
Thank you for listening to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all copyright and property of the BBC, and no infringement is intended.